So the next person down the list, which makes sense to everybody, would be, should I report evidence to Skagit County Sheriff's Office? And that's a complicated one to answer. And my answer was no, I don't think I should. The reality is the audit evidence created a lot of concern that the prosecuting attorney, who works in very closely with Sheriff McDermott, they had somebody in that office involved in what I'd found occurring at the auditor's office. So I didn't think that was a good route to go. And for those who don't know why that's such a big concern, is the auditor would be receiving legal counsel from the prosecuting attorney's office. They assign people from there. And I don't care what anyone says. I don't trust that. If they say, oh, we wouldn't tell them something. No, that's not reasonable for someone with common sense who wants to avoid that problem. So I went down a different path, and it was initially recommended by someone I interacted with that I contact and work with the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office, because there was an interlocal agreement, which I'm very generally familiar with government and intergovernment relationships, and that made total sense to me. They would have something in place for a clear conflict situation like this. So that's the path I decided to go down. So I contacted Whatcom County Sheriff Bill Elfo, and I was unfortunately I got a response I just wasn't very happy with. And so let me show you the letter I provided, and I'll show you the response. So what we have here is my letter transmittal with the audit report and my evidence of fraud and corruption that I provided to Whatcom County Sheriff's Office, and where I explained to them the crimes of ballot fraud and the deletion of federal election records, and not to mention the state records that were inherently part of that as well. And so I had a substantial amount of evidence, and I pointed out to them that I wanted to give this to them to review. And in response, Sheriff Elfo replied, the Whatcom County Sheriff has no authority or jurisdiction to commence an investigation of this nature in another county. So then he told me to contact the Skagit County Sheriff's Office. And I'll be honest, I don't think that was necessary, but he told me I did, so here it is. I'll let some legal experts out there decide if he did the right thing. So again, it was clear to me there was a conflict. I don't know why this was ever a question, but I went down and followed the path after some abrasive correspondence with them and moved forward. And that's when I was in contact with Sheriff McDermott initially, and contacted them, and I explained to them what I had in my report. And mind you, the public was just finding out about it, and the government officials out there were just getting their eyes on it for the first time. Again, this is March 2nd. And I pointed out clearly I had conflict concerns, and I didn't want to give the evidence to them that I felt was just inappropriate to hand off because of those conflict concerns I had described with the Wyrich's office and McDermott's office. So Mr. McDermott, he then told me something that I was pretty upset about. You look in here, he reviewed the documents that were provided to both Whatcom and Whatcom County Sheriff Elfo and him. So they provided the evidence to him, all of it. And then he went on to say that, well, look, the Washington State Attorney General is the resource available to conduct this investigation. Mind you, I'm not convinced that that's always required. The sheriff has the mightiest law enforcement in every county. And he says, if the Attorney General chooses not to investigate, then my hope is that they, as in the Attorney General's office, would contact another uninvolved law enforcement agency for assistance. I'll be honest, I thought this was a pretty ridiculous response, and I want everyone to see it. I want you to see what's going on here. The sheriff that we elect in Skagit County and any county is saying that they're not going to investigate it. There's someone else, and if that person doesn't do it, then it's out of my hands. and that's just not true. There's criminal referrals that can be made to federal agencies, and I think that's important for everyone to understand here. Every single elected official can request a federal intervention in a federal election. They can also request investigators to come, and because they're concerned about corruption and government influence for investigations. So that's within everyone's rights. Every single government agency has the right to do that. And instead, it's pretty clear from McDermott's email to me, he's trying to push me down and make me, if I wasn't a strong enough person, just accept, well, we've done the best that we can do. So thank you for bringing this issue to my attention, is how he ends it, and I was not very pleased with that. And then I expressed the sharing of information with the prosecuting attorney's office, how I felt that was inappropriate. I'd warned them before, mind you, I'd warned them not to do that at every office in both Whatcom and Skagit because of the evidence concerns I had. And so you'll see that on March 5th, shortly after this email, I went back and looked at my records, and I filed a complaint against Mr. McDermott for improperly releasing information to potential people that were implicated in the allegations and crimes that I reported. And lo and behold, after filing that complaint on March 5th, on March 9th, I received this email update. Mr. Hart, I just received confirmation that the Whatcom County Sheriff and the Whatcom County Prosecuting Attorney have agreed to look into this matter in light of the information that members of the Skagit County Prosecuting Attorney's Office may be involved and the possible conflict of interest with staff of the Skagit County Sheriff's Office. I believe it was in the best interest of this investigation that no Skagit County Sheriff's Office employee take any further action for fear of compromising the case. Well, aren't you a smart man, Mr. McDermott? That's a good idea, have Whatcom County Sheriff involved. And I will remind everyone, he wasn't going to do it. I had to file a complaint against him for handing off the evidence. And if I hadn't done that, what would have happened? Nobody would have done anything. Whatcom County Sheriff wouldn't have done anything because they weren't asked by Skagit County Sheriff to investigate government crimes and report corruption. I'm convinced nothing. Just so everyone understands my position on this, I don't think they would have done anything. I think this written correspondence and the tone of it and the nature of it proves that. So again, Skagit County Sheriff proves my conflicts of interest concerns were justified. I warned Sheriff McDermott that Prosecuting Attorney Wyrich's office was implicated, and he still provided him the evidence. As with Perkins, Skagit County Sheriff McDermott is also not impartial, and that was another reason nobody in their office should have been involved. He was up for election in 2020. Again, the results of this election, in which we are proving corruption and fraud, may have impacted Mr. McDermott being elected. And he didn't have the common sense to initiate what I, non-law enforcement person, thinks is clear common sense, to involve people outside the agency and not give evidence to those who are implicated.